The other thing that I love so much about this prize is that it's oops, can't see my head. Hi everyone, it's me, Jess. Welcome to another video. I hope everyone is doing well. It has been a very busy week in book world, in the booktube community, and the book world and publishing world in general. We've had 3 huge prize lists announced and many other prizes announced. I was just looking on Instagram and I saw that, so I was just looking online and Jenny Fagan just won the Gordon Byrne Prize for Utlin. I haven't had a chance to pick that one up. There are just so many books at this point. So I'm probably going to make a couple of videos over the coming week. I'm actually on my March break, which means I have a bit more time to devote to booktube and making videos, so that's very exciting. I haven't chosen my TBR for March. That's coming shortly. I really wanted to wait until the long lists were published. So the long lists that I'm looking at are the International Booker Prize long list, the Women's Prize long list, and of course the Carol Shields Prize, which this video is exclusively devoted to. I love this prize so much. What I love most about this prize possibly is the cash purse. The purse for this prize is $150,000 US. That is a significant purse. I believe the biggest. Correct me if I'm wrong. The short list for the Carol Shields Prize will be announced on April 3rd. The other thing that I really love about this prize is that it includes a combination of Canadian and American authors, specifically 15 on the long list, women authors from Canada and the United States, and I just love the Canadian representation here. We just don't get the kind of recognition on the international stage. Sometimes, occasionally, we'll get a big author will be recognized, but generally I think that there's a disproportionate amount of Irish writers, maybe? Anyway, I don't want to get off topic. So let's stay on topic and let's take a look at the nominees for the Carol Shields Prize, the long listed books. I'm going to begin with the Canadian. This is the Canadian segment of the program. Canadians are having a moment of international recognition that perhaps we have never seen before and maybe never will again. So I'm going to take advantage of it and talk about the Canadian books on the list first, and then I'll talk about the books by American writers. The first book that I want to speak about that I think is just a big deal. I think this book is a big deal. I talked about it for the first time actually at the beginning of 2024. I did a rundown of the Globe and Mail's 2024 most anticipated books or best books of the year so far. I will leave that video linked in the description box below. And on that list was a book called Code Noir by Canisia Lubrin. And I thought the premise of this very experimental book was fascinating. First of all, it's a debut work of fiction. It's said to be extremely original. I was just in the bookstore today looking through it because its layout and its format is very original and experimental. So I do think that it will be important to read this one in a physical copy at the time. I'm not sure if I'm going to get it out of the library. Right now, it's still only available in hardback, and I am not excited about buying hardback books. So I'm going to see if I can get it from my library. But I've been hearing about this one, like I said, since the beginning of this year. It takes its starting point from the real-life Code Noir, which is a historical set of decrees that was originally passed by King Louis XIV of France in 1685. And this original decree, the Code Noir, defined the conditions of slavery in France during the colonial empire. And the original code had 59 articles within it. And what Canisia Lubrin has done is take those 59 codes and from the 59 codes format develop stories. 59 stories, described on the Carol Shields website as linked fictions, actually. So this is such an interesting idea to me. And I guess the fiction pieces all range in genre style. So some are dystopian, some are literary, some are historical fiction. So it's like a braided group of really varied stories that gives an interpretation and a meaning well beyond these 59 decrees. It's been described as being very bold, very daring, very unusual and original, and I just think it's great that it's being recognized, and I'm excited to take a look at it. I think it will be one of those books that really demands the reader to think and to evaluate the topic of slavery, obviously, and I think it'll be very, very good. So I will definitely try to get my hands on this one if I can. I'm very happy to see it on the list. The stories are also accompanied by drawings as well, which is another reason to make sure that you pick up the hard copy. The drawings are by the visual artist Turquoise Dyson. I hope I'm not saying the names incorrectly. Turquoise Dyson. And just a little bit about Canisia Lubrin. She is one of the Writers' Trust's Canadian rising stars. That's how she's described. She was also her book was also a finalist for the Trillium Award for Poetry and the Governor General's Literary Award. She's held fellowships at the Banff Center, Simon Fraser University, Queen's University, Victoria College, University of Toronto. She has a creative writing MFA in the School of English and Theatre Studies from the University of Guelph. So yeah, really, I'm just really happy to see that. So that is super exciting. Next Canadian book that I'll speak about is Curiosities by Anne Fleming. This book was listed, I don't know if it was shortlisted or if it was longlisted for the Giller Prize in 2024. This is described as a genre-bending novel that opens with an amateur historian named Anne, who is very passionate about her research into what's described as the murkier corners of England in the 1600s. So at one point in an archive, Anne has stumbled across this very obscure memoir. It hints at secret lives and secret loves, a plague in a village, and two kids, Joan and Thomasina, who are the only survivors of this plague. Follow these children's lives through time. Thomasina moves to America, ends up in Virginia, where she dresses as a boy and navigates through life in America as a male. Joan is hired as a maid to Lady Margaret Long and becomes this lady's companion. And so they're separated, and then years later, they come back together and they fall in love. But of course, Tom is not Tom male, Tom is female. So I think it's an exploration of this relationship, and I think they get discovered, and then they also are potentially persecuted or saved. Have to read the book to find out. I don't want to read off the whole synopsis, but it sounds good. I actually saw someone reading this at my gym the other day, and I thought, oh, I wonder what that is about. I think I might give it a try. There are a couple of other ones that I want to read first. It sounds very good, and it was listed on the Giller Prize list this year, so it's already received quite a bit of attention here in Canada. And Anne Fleming is from BC. There's quite a few books from British Columbia actually on this list. So next we have a Montreal author, very new to me. I had not heard of this book at all. Naniki by Unya Kempadu. So Unya Kempadu is interested in cross-disciplinary dialogue. She is a citizen of England, Guyana, and Grenada, and currently lives in Montreal. The book is about the Caribbean spirit-inflected world and explores the musings and inner workings of the deep blue, the Caribbean Sea, and its shape-shifting sea beings. So this sounds very magical. It says, as the sea mirrors the light from the blue skies and its depths are exposed by daggers of sunlight, so too Naniki reveals and honors the indigenous roots of the Caribbean and its people whose destiny is tied to the sea, the vessel of collective memory. So it sounds like there are a couple of different characters that are like spiritual beings, like active spirits. Like, so that's what the Naniki is. It's an active spirit or kind of an animal avatar, shape-shifting Naniki. So they go on a journey. So there are two characters, Amana and Skilele, and they're made of water and air. And they're tied to their African ancestry and Taino ancestry, and they make their way on a journey through the Caribbean basin to see the strange future that they dreamed of until devastation erupts. So this is not going to be for everyone, but I think it's great that we have some representation here of Indigenous Caribbean. I think it's wonderful to have this representation of Indigenous storytelling, particularly for someone from the Caribbean. Fantastic. And the other two Canadian books I actually picked up today from the bookstore. The first I had already had my eye on. It's a Quebecois writer. The book is Pale Shadows by Dominique Fortier, translated by Rhonda Mullins. This is about Emily Dickinson. So the back reads, when she died, Emily Dickinson left behind hundreds of poems scribbled on scraps of paper. She also left behind three formidable women, her steadfast sister Lavinia, her brother's ambitious mistress Mabel Loomis Todd, and his grief-stricken wife Susan Gilbert Dickinson. With no clear instructions from Emily, these three women would, through mourning and strife, make from those scraps of paper a book that would change American literature. I think it's going to be really good. I haven't read a lot of Emily Dickinson's poetry, but I think she's using Emily Dickinson's poetry to really explore writing and how it influences us. I'm excited to read this one. This, I think, is going straight on my TBR. Dominique Fortier is a novelist and translator, and she has been a four-time finalist for the Governor General's Literary Award for Translation, actually. So she's translated a lot of Canadian authors' books into French. So, for example, she translated Heather O'Neill's The Lonely Hearts Hotel, among other books, into French. And then the last Canadian author on the list is one that I'd not heard of before. This is a book by Erica McKean called Cicada Summer. This is a BC author, and the book is set, so the story is set in the summer of 2020 with a heat wave bearing down on a brood of periodical cicadas climbing into the trees. Husha mourns the recent death of her mother while quarantining with her ailing grandfather. So it's set during the pandemic. This lakeside cabin in remote Ontario. They're soon joined by Husha's ex-lover Nellie, who arrives without explanation to complete their trio. Also among them is a strange book discovered by Husha while cleaning out her mother's house. When she, Arthur, and Nellie begin to read it together, they learn that her mother's last missive was a short story collection, crawling with unsettling imagery and terrifying transformations. This is like very Kafka-coded. As the stories bleed into their cloistered life in the cabin, they must each reckon with loss, longing, and what it means to truly know another person. Well, this sounds really good. I'm glad I picked it up. I do think it's quite a beautiful cover. We will find out. Should be interesting. Yeah, I'm excited to read these two books, and I really want to read Code Noir. Kind of desperately, actually. So I'll be looking for that one from my library. Now we'll talk about the American titles on the list. The first I'll speak about just very, very briefly is All Fours by Miranda July. I've already reviewed All Fours on my channel. If you want to check out that video, it was my recent reads, the last recent reads that I did, which I realized was quite some time ago. So I'm gonna hopefully film another recent reads in the coming weeks. I have plenty of books that I've read that I haven't talked about yet on the channel. There have been so many things going on. But I had a lot of issues with All Fours. It wasn't a book that I got along very well with, and I explain why in that video. So please do check it out if you want to hear more about it. It's been getting so much attention, and I think the amount of attention that All Fours has been getting is kind of disproportionate, in my opinion, to what the book has to offer. So I'm not super excited about it showing up again on this list. I think it's had its moment. So I'll just move on to some of the other books on the list, which I'm a little bit more excited about. The second one that everybody will have already either read or already heard about is Creation Lake by Rachel Kushner. I actually haven't read Creation Lake. I've heard mixed things about it, and I'm not sure if I'm running to the library to get it at this point. I've already spoken about it as well on my channel a couple of different times. It's a novel about a secret agent who is an American woman who is apparently very bold and ruthless. Sounds like a really great character. And she's sent to spy on a French rural commune of subversives who, she's supposed to be monitoring. She falls in love with the leader of this group of men named Lucien. It actually sounds pretty good. I've heard different things about it, but I haven't heard anybody really rave about how amazing they thought it was, so I'm not sure that I'm going to rush to it. I do want to read it though. I do think it sounds interesting. I have no issue with it being here on this list. I think that's fine. Me, the expert that I am. I'm a little surprised that Sally Rooney's Intermezzo isn't on this prize list or the women's prize list. Maybe it will make the Booker prize list, but I'm not sure about the timing. I'm gonna read it. I'm was waiting for it to be listed so I could read it. I'll see if I get selected as a judge for the BookTube prize and get it assigned to me, but I still want to read it anyway. I think it might be on my TBR for this month as well. I just really want to read it. I haven't read a Sally Rooney, and I've heard it's her best one. So this sounds really interesting to me as well. I think it's a debut. It's an author that I certainly have not heard of. The book is called The Hearing Test by Eliza Berry Callahan. Synopsis reads, when the narrator of The Hearing Test, an artist in her late 20s, awakens one morning to a deep drone in her right ear, how awful. She is diagnosed with sudden deafness, but is offered no explanation for its cause. I feel like this is very of this time of the moment when it comes to mysterious illnesses, because there's just so many of them. As the specter of total deafness looms, she keeps a record of her year, a score of estrangement and enchantment. My father suffered from hearing loss, and it's very socially isolating. So I think this is really an interesting topic. I actually really want to read this. As the specter of total deafness looms, she keeps a record for her year, a score of estrangement and enchantment, of luck and loneliness, the chance occurrences to which she becomes attuned while living alone in New York City. Through a series of fleeting and often humorous encounters with neighbors, an ex-lover, doctors, strangers, family members, faraway friends, and with the lives and works of artists, filmmakers, musicians, and philosophers, making meaning becomes a form of consolation and curiosity, a form of survival. Oh, this just sounds so good. The synopsis is very well written. Definitely want to read that one. It's not available for me just now, but hopefully it will be available sooner. I have a feeling it might be one of those books that doesn't make it to the short list, so it's definitely on my radar now though. Next up we have Kin by V. Afua Prince. Kin is a story and celebration of Black womanhood, of resistance, and of perseverance, while simultaneously an indictment of American history. This tree depicts family grafted together by blood, law, or choice. Its stories, I think this is a set of interconnected stories. Its stories are voiced through blues-infused poetry, one-act plays, oral history, and reportage that are combined to form an orchestra of Black history and re-memory. I think it's a set of stories because it says practically true stories on the cover, so I think this is actually a set of stories. Obligations to the Wounded by Mbango Kalamakukwento. This was available at the bookstore, but they had sold it out, so I'm waiting for it to come back in because I think I would like to read this. This is also a set of stories, and they are rooted in Zambian literary tradition, exploring the expectations and burdens of womanhood in Zambia and for Zambian women living abroad through the depiction of games, social media feuds, letters, and folklore to illustrate how girls and women manage religious expectation, migration, loss of language, death, intimate partner violence, and racial discrimination. This sounds really good. And she sounds really interesting. She's an attorney and a writer. When she's not writing, she serves as a fiction editor for DOEC and as a mentor to the Minnesota Prison Writing Workshop. So she sounds like a really interesting person. Liars. Okay, so I talked about this book in another Globe and Mail book list that I covered for the summer of last year. And at the time, this novel piqued my interest as well. It's called Liars by Sarah Manguso. I tried to find a copy of it at the bookstore, but it's only still out in hardback, so I'm going to hang on or try to get it from the library. And this is about women's role in the family. The synopsis reads, a nuclear family can destroy a woman artist. So I don't know, it's a similar kind of theme, I guess, to All Fours, but this feels like it has a different tone to it, which might just fit my preference. A nuclear family can destroy a woman artist. I'd always known that, but I'd never suspected how easily I'd fall into one anyway. When Jane, an aspiring writer, meets filmmaker John Bridges, they both want the same things: to be in love, to live a successful creative life, and to be happy. When they marry, Jane believes she has found everything she was looking for, including, a few years later, all the attendant joys and labors of motherhood. But it's not long until Jane finds herself subsumed by John's ambitions, whims, and ego. In short, she becomes a wife. See, this just already sounds like the tone of it sounds more interesting to me than All Fours. I just didn't like All Fours. So as Jane's career flourishes, their marriage starts to falter. Throughout the upheavals of family life, Jane tries to hold it together, that is, until John leaves her. So it's kind of the opposite side of the same story, where the husband leaves the wife as opposed to the wife running away. I guess I'm falling more in this camp, but I do really want to read this. And I think could be an interesting conversation relative to All Fours. Masquerade by Oo Sangoyomi. I hope I'm saying the name correctly. This is a reimagining of 15th century West Africa, and it's said to be a dazzling lyrical tale exploring the true cost of one woman's fight for freedom and self-discovery and the lengths she'll go to secure her future. So this is about a woman who is abducted and she's taken to the capital, where she finds out that her kidnapper is none other than a vagrant who had visited her guild. So she's in a blacksmith guild. And so the kidnapper was a vagrant who had visited the blacksmith guild days prior, and then now he's wealthy. So he's not a vagrant at all. He's a warrior king. And he has chosen her to be his wife. So in this sudden change of fortune, she reaches the heights of society in this world. And then there's tensions between rival states. This sounds like a very sweeping kind of story. It sounds very good. It sounds very accessible. I'm not sure if I'll get to this one. I think I'll wait to see what other people have to say. But it sounds like very appealing. It could be very appealing for a lot of readers. Bear by Julia Phillips. I have seen this book all over the bookshelves here in Montreal. Lots of people, I think, reading it. I think it's a fairly commercial book. The synopsis reads, Sam and her sister Elena dream of another life on the island of the coast of Washington where they were born and raised. They and their mother struggle to survive. Sam works long days on the ferry that delivers wealthy mainlanders to their vacation homes, while Elena bartends at the local golf club. But even together, they can't earn enough to get by, stirring their frustration about the limits that shape their existence. Then one night on the boat, Sam spots a bear swimming the dark waters of the channel. Where is it going? What does it want? When the bear turns up by their home, Sam, terrified, is more convinced than ever that it's time to leave the island. But Elena responds differently to the massive beast. Enchanted by its presence, she throws into doubt the plan to escape and puts their long-held dream in danger. I mean, it sounds good. It's not something I'm going to be running to. I'll wait and see what other people have to say about it before I pick this one up. I've seen a lot of people reading it, so I'm sure I'm going to hear more about it. Everything Flirts, Philosophical Romances by Sharon Wall. So Sharon Wall is a filmmaker, actually. She's a writer and a documentary. She's a documentary film producer. I was once a film producer. So she takes classic works of philosophy and turns their focus to love. This sounds really interesting. For example, the philosopher Zeno's laws of motion stipulate that we can only ever cross half of any distance. This principle is applied to a first date, where making a first move becomes more and more impossible because the movie this couple goes to see is a depressing mood killer. Okay, this sounds interesting. Yeah, that could be good. I don't know if it's stories. Everything Flirts is a set of stories. That sounds really good. I think that could be fun to dip in and out of. And then the last book on the list is a book that was shortlisted for the Women's Prize in 2024, and one that I just picked up in paperback, which I'm quite happy to read. That is River East, River West, Audrey Lescure. I hope I'm saying her name correctly. She is a French-Chinese-American writer who grew up between Shanghai, northern China, and the south of France. So very interesting background. This is about 14-year-old Alva, is raised by her American expat mother, and she's never known her Chinese father. And she's certain that a better life awaits them in America, but when her mother announces her engagement to their wealthy Chinese landlord Lu Fang, Alva's hopes are dashed, and so she plots for the next best thing, the American school in Shanghai. Upon admission, though, Alva is surprised to discover an institution run by an exclusive community of expats and ever wilder thrills of a city where foreigners can ostensibly act as they please. We start out here in 2007, then we go back to 1985. In the seaside city of Qingdao, Lu Fang is a young married man and a lowly clerk in a shipping yard. Though he once dreamed of a bright future, he is one of many casualties in his country's harsh political reforms. So when China opens its doors to the first wave of foreigners in decades, Lu Fang's world is split wide open after he meets an American woman who makes him confront difficult questions about his current status in life and how much will ever be enough. So this is a reversal of east to west migration or immigration in terms of the narrative, and it's going to give us a lot of historical context for China's economic rise, and it alternates between these two different viewpoints of Alva and Lu Fang's. So I've heard really good things about this one, and now I'm really excited to read it. So, especially because I have a copy. So those are the three that I picked up from the Carol Shields Prize list that I have on the docket. And I'm really hoping to get my hands on a copy of Code Noir and Liars. Those are the other two that I think I really want to read as well out of the group. And then after that, probably Curiosities and potentially some of the short stories. Very exciting stuff. So yes, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for walking through this long list with me, or thank you for listening to me talk through this long list. I'm excited to know what you're most excited about reading from the Carol Shields long list, if you're going to be reading anything at all. And yeah, let me know in the comment section below what your plans are. Yeah, we can start making predictions about the short list. We're going to have to be reading quickly. I'm not going to be able to read them all before April 3rd, but I will read a few before April 3rd, and we'll see which ones make it to the short list. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. I'm going to have a TBR video coming your way, some reactions to the Women's Prize, and some picks from the International Booker Prize, and so much more. Thanks again so much for watching, everyone. I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now. Which this video is exclusively devoted to. I just love this prize so much. First thing I love about this, the first thing I want to say, why is there a dog barking? Stop your dogs from barking, it's so annoying. And then I'll talk about the American writers' books. King Louis. And she lives in Whitby, Ontario. I shouldn't say where people live. She lives in Canada. I don't know if it's a set of short stories or if it's a novel. I can't tell from this description. I'm not sure. It sounds really interesting as well. I think it might be stories. I'm just going to see if I can find another description.